Now with Halloween around the corner, it's time to dress up your home and to create some really cool things. We're talking about, check this out, something like this, or why not something like this. I got more for you. Or maybe something as tiny as this. Something spooky. Maybe something spooky and fun. If you're wondering how I'm creating all these things, well, in today's video, we're going to talk about the Xtool D1 that gives you the ability to create a whole host of things for your home for this holiday season. And yes, you can even create some slates and some cool things too. Let's go to check it out. Now the Xtool D1 Pro 20 watt laser has a 120 watt quad laser, and this is going to give you a output of 20 watts when it comes to engraving. The area that you're working with is a 400 by 400 millimeter area, and this does support an extension kit that gives you massive growth. We're talking about 936 millimeters by 432 millimeters. That's huge, and imagine being able to use a laser in that area. It does have the ability to cut in a single pass 10 millimeter wood, so that's also pretty impressive, as well as it does a really good job when it comes to acrylic. It is air assist ready, and we do have an air assist in our solution. And if you think about the laser spot, which is going to define, the actual how thin or the quality of the actual cuts, you're looking at 0.08 millimeters by 0.10 millimeters. It is Wi-Fi enabled. It has safety features too, which is something that I really appreciate. Flame detection, which means that if it detects flame, it stops. A gyroscope that if it detects it moves or shifts and it could fall and there's a hazard, it stops as well. And there's also some alarms. It does have limit switches, which is also appreciated. It has 4, so it's up, down, left, and right, which means that it should prevent your laser from crashing and damaging as it's moving around. It's a solid metal build, and it has really good, I would say, cable management, and the way just everything is built is fantastic, right? It's just not, it doesn't have wires hanging all over the place, bottom line. The other thing is that it supports lightburn, and it also has Xtool's Creative Space, which if you're looking for inspiration, it has a lot of different, I would say, creative pieces that you can look to engrave or cut. So let's go ahead and check out how it works and see why this may be how you can start your next business. All right, guys, so let's talk about our setup right now, because today we're taking a closer look at the Xtool. Again, this is the D1 Pro. This is the 20 watt version, and I have to say I'm absolutely in love with the cutting power and just the precision of this laser. Not only do we have the laser in-house, but we also have something that really gives us a lot of flexibility as to where we're running the laser during cutting. What you can see here is that I have the actual Xtool Enclosure. The Xtool Enclosure not only channels really well smoke, again, any kind of fumes that you're cutting away from the area that you're cutting, but then it also has right here this viewing area that is that's filtering out the actual laser, which makes it something that it's incredibly easier to use as you're trying to align and work with the laser. So what we're going to do is take a look at the laser closer up, the actual enclosure itself, and I'm going to share with you what I'm using to use the laser indoor as far as from like a smoke eating perspective. So first, let's take a look at the enclosure, and then we'll take a look at the laser. Now this enclosure is a very flexible solution, and what I like about it is that depending on how you're using it, you don't always have to have it occupying all the space. And that's because this enclosure is fire retardant, right? So it's going to basically repel fire, so that if you do have any kind of flare-up. It's magnetic, and you can see that there are 2 magnets here that kind of lock things into place to keep things nicely sealed. And then it has kind of like the shield that you'll see here in a couple seconds that really gives you a view of what's happening inside of the actual laser cutting area. Now the viewing angle here is really good, so you can see how we have this area here. You're able to look in and you're able to see everything that's going on with your laser as it's cutting, or if you're doing any kind of alignment. I highly recommend that if you're going to be doing any cutting, especially if you're working on glass, slate, wood, or any material, that you use a sheet of paper to align what you're going to be cutting on that actual surface. Now I'm going to go ahead and open this up so I can show you some of the things that are going on inside. So as we open this up,
a couple things that I've actually removed for a reason is that you have these ties that go on the side that kind of keep, I'd say I'll snap this into place. It keeps your cover in place just like this, right? I flap this cover right here, this piece over, because it provides some weight and actually pushes the cover back. You'll notice that this side right here, I don't have it attached. And the reason why I'm not attaching that side is because I find that it's too taut, and basically it doesn't allow the laser cover or the enclosure cover to fall all the way back, right? Now, the cool thing about this enclosure is that, and we'll go ahead and pan a little bit over to the right here, is that this enclosure, not only is it extremely portable, but it is Velcro, right? So what we have here is a Velcro, you can hear it coming apart right here, component that basically you put all these pieces together and it basically creates this enclosure. Now, when you first start thinking about something like this being Velcro for this unit, you may start asking yourself, well, is it gonna do a good job of channeling the actual fumes out of it, given that it's Velcro? And I have to say the answer is absolutely yes. You'll also notice here at the very bottom, there's a channel here. And I'll put my hand right here so you can see it moving over here. There's a channel, and this channel is an open channel that actually, as the laser is sucking out the actual smoke, fumes, whatever is going on, this creates a real nice airflow where it sucks in from this side and then it's able to go through that area. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you that for you in a second. And that area right there actually has a powered fan that helps with how the actual things are sucked out. Now, you'll notice here that I have my engraver, and I'm going to bring this a little bit closer. A couple things we have going on here. First of all, we do have the air assist. So the air assist is coming in, connected here, and then this is actually going through the actual cover itself. So this is also supported. I do have a honeycomb bed on the bottom, and that is in place, again, as we're cutting, and it's important that it be in place and a little bit raised from a metal surface that's underneath it or a tray that comes with it so that you get good airflow as you're cutting and you don't get any flare-ups. Now, what you'll notice here is that this is where all the fumes are coming out, and I'm going to show you the type of, I would say, smoke eater that I'm using. You have the air assist, and the air assist, again, is going into the actual case itself. And what we also then have is a fan here. There's a fan here that is helping expel the actual fumes or any kind of smoke that's in here. Now, you have the option to have that on, or you have the option to have that off, depending on the type of, I would say, smoke eater that you're using. For example, if I have this going to the outside and I have nothing sucking in the smoke, then I would use the power fan that's in here. But I don't use it because my smoke eater does have a lot of power and it's sucking everything in, so I don't really need the fan. Now, another thing I'll highlight here is that I do have all the power cords coming through here. I only have there's single risers that I have raising the actual laser engraver, the D1. So I pretty much have this just set up like this. So the cables come out, no real smoke is coming through this, and that's basically all I have to have this enclosure working. Now, I have the D1 cover feeding into this fume extractor. This does really well with, let's say, cutting slates, cutting mirrors. It does so when you're cutting wood and anything that is going to have smoke. It's like okay. What I have next to it, I just have an air purifier because I run this just to see what's the air quality like when I'm running things through the laser. And I can say that right now it's a little bit high because I was doing some testing, and you can see the levels here. This does an okay job, still not like what I would like it to do, but more importantly, what I have found is when I'm running the actual this vent pipe outside of my home, I have no real change when it comes to air quality. So the D1 engraving, or I'll say the enclosure, does a really good job when it comes to pushing out any kind of fume, as well as keeping everything out of my home. Now, a couple things are going on here with the Xtool D1 Pro. This is, again, the 20-watt version, very, very powerful laser. Has on the side here a focal area. So you see this little leg that we have right here. Basically, you extend this out and you rest it on the material that you're looking to engrave. So for example, if we were working with a slate, right? So here I have a slate. This is a slate that we ran on the Xtool. You can see I have some examples of just the overall quality. We'll get that in focus. This was me just doing a lineup test just to see what type of cuts I would get, but you can see here the overall quality, right? That just looks just really, really clean. And again, just really love the overall quality of it. But what you would do here is you would take your material that you're going to engrave, you would move your laser over it, and right now it's a little bit lower because I was running some wood, right? But I would basically put my slate here, bring this little leg down, right? And that's my focal point. And then what I would do is I would just tighten this point, and now it's there in place, and then I would raise this little leg. So you can see this little leg right here that's actually coming up. See that right there? Basically comes into place, and then you're set to go. So now it's been adjusted to work on a slate. If I was working on a mirror, I would do the same thing. I would just use that to adjust it. Now, the cool thing about this laser is that it has some stops over here. So you'll see this one right here. So the actual laser knows that this is the furthest that the laser can go. There's also one, and we'll move this over to the side here, there's actually one over here too at the very end. So you have two. So these two are going to be able to, again, help you when it comes to overall homing, and then making sure that the laser doesn't crash to the sides. Makes a huge, huge difference. Now, the other thing I'll highlight about this laser is that it's currently on, and we've been testing a lot of lasers on the channel. One of the things that kind of drives me a little bit bonkers about things is when you basically are testing a laser or running a laser, that when it's off, it is just so intensely loud. This thing is super quiet. It only makes noise when it's running, when you're actually cutting. So the fan turns on only when you cut, and it's not on all the time. And I really, really like that as well. The other thing that you'll notice is that in this enclosure, everything is nice and tucked in nicely. So cable management here, while it is using some Velcro ties, or not, well, you can use twist ties or Velcro, it is pretty well done. And what we'll do is we'll pan over here for the side for a second, and you can see I left some uncut so that you can see so you can see what the experience is. So for example, it has all these little holes here that you would cut in, and then this is what you would use as some twist ties. Once you're done with it, you just snip it off. I left that there so that you can see what that looks like. Everything is metal, everything works really nice and smooth, and it's just... Now you can engrave and do your cuts in two ways with the Xtool D1 Pro 20 watt and 10 watt. One of them is using lightburn, and I was using lightburn. I'm going to kind of reveal some of the things that I was working on here. So you notice that these are some lanterns that I was cutting, and I'm just going to show you some of the examples of how clean this is. So here is, again, one of the ones I was cutting. It's like really spooky. I like how it's kind of like, ooh, kind of really nicely cut, really, really precise. We'll look at the quality in a couple seconds. But I was just running the cuts here and then just getting everything set up in lightburn. So lightburn is one option when it comes for you to use the laser and either cut and engrave. So far I've engraved glass. I've also then cut wood of various widths, and then I've also done engraving on slates. And that combined with lightburn, which is kind of like my preferred and highly recommended software for this, is definitely a go. Now with the Xtool D1, you have two options when it comes to laser engraving. One is using lightburn, and one is using the Xtool software. Now, if this is your first time using a laser engraver, I highly recommend that you consider using the Xtool Creative Space first. This is a great way for you to get to learn your laser. In addition for you learning more about your laser, and you can see the laser right here is immediately recognized, it has many projects that allow you to experiment. So I'm going to go into the projects area, and then we're going to see some of the options that come up. And these are all the things that are just free here for you to experiment. So for example, you can choose any of these things here. Here you have a black cat. Here you have a candle lampshade, which is going to be kind of spooky, really great for Halloween. You then have these risers. You'll notice over here you have a Father's Day card too. But let's say, for example, I wanted to just experiment and learn more about using the tool, using, again, this type of material. Notice it tells you exactly what type of material you need. Right? And you can even buy it online if that's something that you'd want. You choose start, and then all of a sudden you're going to see this come up. Those are all the parts. It's that simple. So literally all you do is bring this up, and this is a great way to start learning how to use the D1 Pro. Now I could go over here and I can do preview, or process here, and it's basically going to bring everything into point. And you'll notice that here we have a couple options. What you basically do at this point is you do a framing, right? And I'm going to take you over so you can see what framing means. And pretty much what framing, what it does is it takes the laser and actually gives you kind of a perimeter check so that you understand how much space you're going to need in order to be able to use use the actual laser, like how much surface area is going to be required. So let's take a look at the laser. I'm going to press frame so you can see what happens. Now once you do your framing, just want to highlight something that's going on right here, and it's a little safety feature. You see that button right there that's kind of flashing? It's basically making sure that you're again present, that you're going to be overseeing this, and it's going to require you to press that button to start the frame. So we're going to go ahead and press the button, and you notice how the laser is going over that area. So what it's doing here is it's telling you what's the surface area that's going to cover before it does the cut. This is really important. This is kind of like one of the fundamentals of any time you're doing any kind of engraving, that you get this kind of framing done. And then once you've done it, all you do is go back to the software and you press the button and it will start to cut. Now this process that you're about to see is the same process that you go through if you're using this with the lightburn software. It has very similar steps. You frame and then you cut. I'm going to go ahead and do our cut right now so you can see what it looks like, and then you'll see kind of like the cutting process. It's going to require me to push that button, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the cover for a second. We'll go ahead and do that. Push the button, bring this back down, and then you see the actual laser now going. This moves really, really fast. The quality again is really good. And remember, I'm doing this indoor, but I do have that kind of fume eater, right, or the smoke eater, that is going to take care of absorbing all that. And I'm also watching my air quality sensor here that is still writing well. I'm going to stay quiet for a second just to give you a sense of what the sound sounds like, especially with this cover, because it does dampen the sound quite a bit. Now keep in mind that the sound that you're hearing, there's a couple things going on. There's an actual fan on the laser. There's actual air being pumped, so you do have the air assist that's kicking in. And the laser's again handling the movement. The movement, left, right, up, down, is very quiet. It really comes down to the fan and the air assist. Now I'm going to bring into camera view while it's doing its thing there, something that I've already cut. And this is a test that I ran on the Xtool. And here what you can see is this was a cutting test that I wanted to see, how quickly could it cut and at what power, right? And basically what it has here is passes. So here you have one pass, and then you basically have a couple things going on, right? You basically have your power and your speed. And it's showing that, this thing is cutting. This is a cutter for sure, right? So anytime you're going to run, let's say any kind of new material, the same material, you're going to want to see how well it cuts. And you'll see it's doing it in the background, but here you'll see how nice and clean these cuts are. Now I run material tests like this on a lot of different material, right? You just don't stick with just one type of material. If you're going to be doing cork, if you're going to do slate, you always want to run it, because then that's going to tell you what your material, I would say, both speed and power is going to require. Here you notice here, this is a slate that we did. This slate basically told me that, like, for me, my favorite is going to be 10,000 is my speed, and then also power 100. That's what I like. Now I could do 11,000 too, and the nice thing about having something go this fast is that you can cut or you can engrave slates super duper fast. I really like that. And then this goes back to the option that we had right here, so check this out. This was the one that we just did, and this also came out absolutely gorgeous. Great quality. Let's try to make sure that stays in focus right there so you can see that. Really, really great quality. Now we did other things too. You saw I had a giant skull arrangement there, and I just want to show you. So this was actually done on the Xtool. This is actually, I actually had taken a picture of a skull arrangement that I really liked, and then inside of lightburn, I actually traced it out. It took me about 2 minutes to do, and I recreated a smaller version of this. I have one that's probably about 4 feet tall, and I made one that is smaller now that I can run, or that I can actually place like on a door, like as an ornament, and not something as large as that one is. But look at how clean this is. This is like spectacular, and this is what I like about this tool so much. And this just takes literally minutes to do, and then with that air assist, things come out really, really nice and clean. Now, I had been doing a lot of testing on this, trying to see different power levels, but you can take a look at this side right here, how clean that is. In addition to that, we've been running a lot of other things. We've been doing some lanterns. Here is one of the lanterns that we're working on, and you can see, let's go ahead and bring this up a little bit so you can see that right there. Look how nice that looks. Kind of spooky, woo, right? So this, again, look how clean those cuts are, right? Absolutely gorgeous, especially with that air assist, right? There's really very little that you have to do to this. It's just put it together. So we're going to have a lot of fun putting these together and then putting like some little lights in it just to show off these lanterns. We also have some Christmas lanterns that we're creating, these Halloween ones. I have another one that I'll show you a little bit later, but this is kind of one of my favorite spooky ones. Now the laser's still doing its thing, and while it's doing that, I'm going to show you another lantern setup that we set up. This is another spooky lantern that we ran. This one you can put like a little tea light inside, and this is going to be really cool. Great for kids to put it together, so I did one with two faces. You can do it with a single face, right, and then just have that one there. But I just wanted to show you kind of how clean those cuts are. Look how nice that is, right? You can see how well they are. You could spray paint this. Just really, really nice. Right, take a look at the top right there. Very, very nice. For those of you who are curious about what they look like when they're cut, I have one here that I just did a trace because I just want to show you how precise this is. So this is the actual trace. I did a light cut just to show you the quality right there. You can see all these, and literally, if I ran this with a higher power, these would just pop out. But this is just a sample to show you what's going on here. Here's that spooky face right there. Right? Again, it can still come out. You can see how this will pop out just like this. But I just wanted to leave it right here so you can see it. Look at how clean that is. All right? You have that one right there. And then look at this one. Look how nice that is. Right? Really, really, really clean cuts. So this gives you an idea of kind of like all the different things that you can create with this. The Xtool D1 20 watt, the Pro version, this one that I have right here, plus this enclosure, plus the air assist, is just going to create limitless options when it comes to engraving, cutting, and just making fun things.
So guys, that wraps up our review. See you in the next video.